getting on a little serious topic here. Before we actually started talking, I was talking to John, and we were talking about how much politics we're going to talk about, and we decided that we weren't going to talk a whole lot of politics, right? But then Jonathan told me a little bit of his story, and we take this stuff very seriously. We at Politics Done Right are proponents of Medicare for All because people really need it. It is very important, that particular issue of everybody having health insurance. And what we're doing in the United States right now, we call pretty much antiseptic murder. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your story, Jonathan, that we discussed earlier with you and your wife, and what went on?
Absolutely. So this year, in the midst of COVID-19, in June, my wife was diagnosed with stage 3 inductal carcinoma, invasive inductal carcinoma. She'll kill me for messing that up. I'm sorry, y'all. But nonetheless, she was diagnosed with it. And my wife just turned 30 in January. We had a 11th-month-old baby that she was still breastfeeding at the time. And if it wasn't for breastfeeding, we probably wouldn't have found the tumor. So, of course, like anybody who gets that information, and also as young as we are, we were terrified. And part of my background was in finance. So not only thinking about the mortality side, I also thought about the financial side as well. And that also looked terrifying. My wife had her care done at MD Anderson. And also, there was no way that they would let me into the hospital. So the whole time she's done her treatment, her surgeries, anything, she's had to do that by herself. And so that was also challenging. One of the ways that we were able to keep up with the financial bills, since we didn't, let's say, we didn't qualify for any type of financial assistance, none. There was just none available to us. And it wasn't, from our caseworker told us, it wasn't even worth looking or applying. So we decided to go to GoFundMe. We designed buttons. My wife designed Jack hoodies. And she, even in the midst of going through chemo treatment, was out there connecting with people online, sharing her story, and people were donating in exchange of those items. November 18th, my wife had her double mastectomy, which was the first time that we knew that the cancer cells weren't in her body. And as of Monday of this week, she was given a report that she was totally cancer-free. They didn't find one microcell in any of her tissue in what they removed. So the gorilla pounds that was on our shoulder just left. And I'll tell you what, her perseverance and her willingness to live and to connect and to reach out to people potentially helped save a just tremendous avalanche of other problems that we had. And of course, MD Anderson is not cheap. So just seeing the bills roll in, was enough to faint. I think there was a needle that she had to use to inject steroid after a treatment that I believe was $18,000. $18,000, man, just to have this patch. And and when you're fighting or wanting your family member to fight for their life, your significant other, there's not enough money that somebody could show you that will make you go, man, no, so you got to take what you can get, because you got to keep her going. You got to keep her living, but there wasn't one day, and some of the worst days, emotional ways I had, was thinking about, what are we going to do with this big financial burden that's just growing week after week after week after week. And, like I say, shout out to everybody that helped anyway. We had people sending us dinners. We had people just chipping in anyway. And of course, we were able to go and hit that out-of-pocket max quickly with the support of our friends and family to protect us, because a lot of that money was going to go to our children going to school. So that was my journey. My group, shout out to them every week. They let me do this podcast with them every week. And that was sometimes that was only the only hour or two that I actually laughed in a day or two, right? Because of how much worrying or how much stress that I was under. But even the days that I sucked on the podcast, it still gave me something to live for, you know. Um, so I appreciate them for that. But that's been my story in a nutshell.
Let me tell you, Jon, I believe stories are some of the best way to communicate and actually effect change. And I think the thing about it is in America, we know how to suffer in silence. And it's one of the worst things that's out there. And the when one shares stories, when people are able to hear each other's stories, they realize, first of all, that they're not alone. But secondly, that your story today can be my story tomorrow. And once we understand that, we can start from a political standpoint, we can start talking about policies that help everybody without somebody think, well, it's only he's going to benefit from that, as opposed to just maybe if I am in your position, I would be able to benefit. As a person who has a wife with lupus, with those kinds of expenses, I understand your pain. And it's interesting because earlier on, we also spoke to Amici, who is originally from England and understands that they don't have that problem that we have at all. Nobody is going to go bankrupt from or lose their income from that. So thank you for telling the story, and thanks for having this little interlude where we could get a little bit of our politics in there. And I'm so happy that your wife is doing much better. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.